We're doing some work on the Trailblazer to set that Trailblazer SS cam only record, and I wanted to address one of the things that I get asked, honestly, more than anything else on YouTube, and that is, how did I do my 5-lug conversion on my Trailblazer SS? Well, in today's video, we are going to address that, and I'm not only going to give you one option, I'm going to give you two options on how to do a 5-lug swap. So I guess the first question would be, why would you even want to do a 5-lug conversion on a Trailblazer SS? Well, in my situation, I really wanted to run these Alumistar wheels. So to do that, we had to run 5 lugs. They do not make these in a 6-lug. Of course, same thing for the back. I wanted to run the Alumistars here on the back. We also, when we did this 5-lug conversion, we also did a deal with the rear end housing where we got rid of all the C-clips. So we did kind of like a C-clip eliminator thing, but we used 9-inch Ford parts. So if you're curious about that, I'll actually link that down in the description below. You can watch that after this video, but basically it's a good way to get rid of the C-clips, especially like in this situation where we're drag racing this thing. But anyway, let's go ahead, let's yank the wheels off of this thing. That way I can show you kind of the meat and the potatoes of what it takes to do a 5-lug conversion. And guys, it's not as complicated as you think. All right, y'all, now that we got the wheels off of the car, I'm gonna give you the easy way on how to do a 5-lug conversion. So first, you can actually buy a bearing from a company called 1320 Wheels. On these spindles here, I'll actually show you how the bearing is made. It's kind of how like a lot of the new cars are. But basically on the back side here, you can kind of see that it's got a bearing that actually bolts into the spindle. So you can actually just buy a brand new bearing from 1320 Wheels that already has a 5-lug bolt pattern on it. Basically what they do is they take a Trailblazer SS bearing, they weld all the holes up, the 6-lug holes, and then they re-drill it 5-lug, press the studs in, boom, you can bolt it in, you're good to go. So you reuse your factory brakes, whole 9 yards. While we're on the topic of brakes, these are actually not Trailblazer SS brakes that I did. And actually on the next video, I'm actually gonna show you guys this because this is actually a lot lighter than a factory Trailblazer SS setup. So stay tuned for that. But back to the 5-lug conversion here. That's how we do it easy in the front. Just use the 1320 Wheels bearing up front. Pretty straightforward. Moving to the back. From the same company, I believe you can actually also buy, it's a Dutchman axle. So basically what it is a direct replacement axle that goes right back in this. It still does use C-clips. So if you're racing, you know, your Trailblazer SS, probably not the best option. But if all you're concerned about is running a 5-lug wheel, then hands down, just using the direct fit Dutchman 5-lug axle, you just get a pair of those, pretty much good to go. So that's the easy way to do a 5-lug conversion, and I would say that would be more for like the guys who are looking for more of like an appearance standpoint, or they're just looking to get 5-lug wheels on super quick without engineering a whole bunch of stuff or spending a bunch of money. So now that we've talked about that, let's go ahead and let's move forward with actually what I did on my Trailblazer SS and kind of the reason why I went about it that way. So kind of moving back to the front here and why I chose what I did. So the one downfall of the 1320 Wheels bearing is you are locked into buying a bearing from them if something were to ever happen. Now, in our Trailblazer SS, we do a lot of drag and drive events, and if there was ever a situation where we lost a front wheel bearing, I mean, obviously these things don't last forever, I would be at the mercy of having to find another bearing from 1320 Wheels. I guess the smart thing would do in that situation would be maybe to buy just a third one to have as an extra just in case. But guys, if you're ever in a situation where you you're stuck and you got the special one-off drilled bearing, not going to be the best setup. So what I did is actually, the bearing I'm using is actually a 2004 S10 bearing. A 2004 S10 bearing is 5 4 3/4 bolt pattern, and oddly enough, it literally bolts directly into the spindle with no modifications whatsoever. But it's the same exact bolt pattern on the back of the spindle as the Trailblazer SS spindle. Now, one thing that I do not know about, I actually do not have working ABS on this truck, so I don't know if that S-Series bearing would work with the factory electronics of the ABS on this thing. That's one thing you kind of would be on your own about. But the reason that, you know, again, I went to the S-Series S10 style bearing is if I was ever anywhere on the side of the road doing a drag and drive event and I needed a bearing ASAP, literally any parts store has one of those. So that is what I did. And then you can kind of getting into the subject of brakes, whether you do the S-Series bearing or you do the 1320s wheels bearing setup, you're going to need to run a 5-lug brake rotor. So what I did is, being that I already had these rotors, and again, this isn't actually Trailblazer SS parts. We'll get into that into the next video. You can actually buy a 5th gen Camaro V6 brake rotor, and it is the right offset and it's also the right diameter for a Trailblazer SS factory brake setup. So if you're not interested in re-drilling your factory rotors that you have now and you just want a brand new kind of slide-on, bolt-on brake rotor, a 5th gen Camaro V6 front brake rotor will work perfect for the factory Trailblazer SS brakes. Now let's go ahead, let's move to the back. So guys, kind of like the front setup, this isn't just you know, order something off of the internet and it shows up and you bolt it on. It is a little bit more engineered, kind of like the front setup. So I mentioned before that I was doing a C-clip eliminator setup, and I'm not going to get too far into it because I did a pretty full explanation in the other video that I'll link in the description below. But you can see I'm actually running a 9-inch Ford bearing in, a 9-inch Ford bearing, and then this axle basically thinks it's a 9-inch Ford housing. So being that I was ordering axles anyway, I just went ahead and ordered these axles to my spec, already 5-lug, and then I just went ahead, and these are just 9-inch Ford brakes, being, you know, I was using the 9-inch Ford housing in. So I did order a custom axle for this. Another reason I ordered a custom axle is I actually narrowed this housing a little bit too, because we run a shallower backspace wheel to kind of give the wheel a little bit more dish on the back here. But again, I did order these axles here. So whether you order a Dutchman axle for your stock length rear end with your stock brakes, or you want to do something where you want to run more of like a 9-inch Ford setup with 9-inch Ford brakes, 9-inch Ford axle, get rid of the C-clips, run the 9-inch axle bearing that presses onto the axle, which is what holds the whole axle in, no more C-clips. You can go about it that way, but just wanted to give you guys that secondary option. I hope this was pretty self-explanatory. If any of this doesn't make sense, or you just want a little bit further in-depth information on it, do me a favor, drop a comment down below. I will be more than happy to help walk anybody through doing a 5-lug setup on one of these Trailblazers. Again, you can do it the simple way like we talked about with option 1, or you can do the little more complicated way like I did with option 2. And guys, in the next video, we are going to be doing a video on how to run a lightweight, I say lightweight, it's a lot lighter than the Trailblazer SS factory brakes, but I'm going to show you guys how to do a lightweight front brake setup using OEM parts that bolts right to the factory Trailblazer SS spindle, so there's no sort of like fabrication or anything that you need to do. These are not Trailblazer SS brakes. So we'll save that for the next video. And guys, I hope you found this video helpful. I know a lot of people ask questions on my 5-lug setup, so just wanted to take a little bit to go over that. Guys, we are going to be doing a Hot Rod Drag Week coming up here in 2 weeks. So if you are anywhere near the, I guess, St. Louis, we're going to Indy, Byron Dragway, and I think Cordova is the other track. We're not going to be taking the Trailblazer. We're actually going to be taking the Cadillac. So if you guys are anywhere near the Hot Rod Drag Week tour, make sure you stop by the track and say hey. Chuck and I will be there. And as always, guys, we appreciate you watching the videos. We'll catch you on the next one.